Wanted to welcome everyone from all around the world. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Deanna Migdal, the Executive Director of Not My USA. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today on this really special Zoom with our guests from Israel. We have Shirli Shavit, and let's see, I will unmute her. Shirli, if you want to say.
Hagit will not be able to join us. I'll explain why.
I didn't see her name, so she's not coming at all?
No, she registered. Of course she'd registered,
yes,
but I just spoke to her 15 minutes ago, and I will explain. It's a crazy day. She's in the office in Tel Aviv with negotiations still. I will update you, and she just can't. She's in her office, but she cannot connect maybe a bit later on, but she's on the press, and a lot of balagan. I will explain.
Okay, I'm sure there's a lot going on.
She's really so sorry about it.
Okay, Shirley. Well, thank you. It's so nice to see you. Anyway, so this is Shirli Shavit, who's our international director, and unfortunately, Hagi Pe'er, the NAMAT president, cannot be with us today. I just hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during this unprecedented time of sheltering in place. I know we're all longing for social interaction other than, with those we live with, but I'm just hoping that once again, we'll be able to meet and gather together in person in a way that's not computer assisted. However, we're really grateful to be able to join together on Zoom today to discuss some really important issues and topics that we all care so much about, and that is what is happening in our AMAT facilities during these challenging times, and what will the future hold. So as I had mentioned, everyone is muted, and I'm going to ask a few questions, and Shirley, will answer. And I just wanted to let everyone know, to set some ground rules, that at any time you can type in a question to the chat box. So if you hover down below, I'm sure you're all pretty comfortable with Zoom these days, but if you hover the chat box, then you can write in a text, and at the end, you can answer that question. Or during the Q&A, you can raise your hand also down at the chat box. You'll see the raise your hand function, and we'll call on you, and you can actually ask your question. So we'll do that in a little while. And one other thing I wanted to mention, that if there are any technical difficulties, if you get kicked out, there's a lot of people. We have 71 people at this time. I'm sure there'll be more joining. If there's any technical difficulties, you get knocked out, something happens, you can contact Marcy McKenzie, who's our illustrious NAMAT assistant. And I'm going to give you her phone number right now, because you can call or text her at any time, and she could help. Her number is area code 310-567-2206. And she's also going to put that contact number into the chat box. So if anything happens, you can contact her. So now, without further ado, I'd actually like to introduce our national president, Jan Gerbich, to say a few words. But 1 second, Jan, I'm going to unmute you. So hold on. And you are good to go.
Okay, great. Before I start, I'd suggest maybe texting everybody Marcy's number in the chat box so that everybody could see it. So I'd like to welcome everyone on our journey into the 21st century. Today, our Zoom call will take us around the globe and bring us at warp speed through 10 time zones. Right now, it's 9 a.m. in California, 11 a.m. in Chicago. In New Jersey, where I live, it's 12 p.m. And finally, in Israel, our destination, it is now 7 p.m. Although our time zones are different, our goals and aspirations remain the same. We share a vision of a vibrant Israel where all Israeli citizens can thrive and grow to their full potential. Today, we will have a unique and first-time experience of doing a video conference with Shirli. And I'm still hopeful maybe Hagit will come in to say hi. And I look forward to hearing their updates about NAMAT and the vision for NAMAT as Israel moves from a country practicing sheltering in place to again becoming an open and vibrant society. Thank you for joining us today. Big hugs to everybody. Big safe hugs. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you, Jan. So now, once again, I'd like to introduce our honored guest, Shirli Shavit. I'm gonna spotlight you. Here we go. So I've had the pleasure of spending time with you on the phone, on WhatsApp, and certainly in person in Israel, most recently in November. It was a pleasure. Times were certainly different at that time. I think many of the people on this call have also met you. I know you've been to LA, you've been to Chicago, I'm sure you've been to many other cities, and I know a lot of people have met you. But I'm sure there are others who haven't, so we're so honored to have you here with us today. So before we get into the specifics of the coronavirus and the challenges we all face, sheltering in place, I'd like to ask you just a few other questions. And this is actually, I'm going to give Jan the credit for this question. Shirley. So as Hillel was asked to describe his religion while standing on one foot, how would you describe the essence of AMAT to someone who is new to this call and someone who is new to AMAT and doesn't know all the wonderful work that AMAT does?
Okay. Actually, no, it's okay. I was not prepared for such a challenging question, but it's okay. This is has been, I think, I'm sure it has been the essence of my life for the last about 25 years or even more. So just in a sentence, the essence of AMAT, I would say, is really influencing the people of Israel. Influencing and helping and trying to better the lives of the women, children, and families of Israel, and really making a difference. And this includes, of course, promoting and empowering, first and foremost, the women in our society. But I would say the real essence is tikkun olam, okay? Really making a difference in our society. And for sure, this is the essence of AMAT International. In Israel, our main goal is to promote the women in our society through all the different services and all the campaigns that we are doing. But I would say tikkun olam on one side and empowering the women on the other side.
And what do you think the greatest victories of AMAT has been in the last decade, let's say? A few key victories.
I'm trying to think of actually, we are dealing basically with the same issues for many, many years. And the issues are very difficult. If you ask me what is the main perhaps change in the last 10 years, I would say perhaps all the idea of gender equality, something that was that we had to fight for, and we are still fighting for, and it was not an issue that everybody understood that has to be dealt with. I would say that in the last 5 years, I see also in the younger generations that this idea of gender equality, of women's rights, of feminism, not in respect of, extreme feminism, but rather the right to be equal is something that AMAT has been fighting for almost 100 years. And we're still doing it, and there is still a long way to go. But I would say for sure, and I see it also with my daughter, the future generations, it's something that we still have to work a lot for, but it's something that the young generations grasp it and live accordingly. And some of the things that for us were not taken for granted, for them it's already natural. It's something that it's their way of life, and it's something that they expect to have it, equality and so on. Sometimes there are problems and they have to fight for it, but it's something that they demand even much more than when we were young, that it's something that was not so obvious that it's our right. So this is something that AMAT promoted and campaigned for so many years in all different aspects.
Thank you so much. I think that's a big part of the reason why we're all here today, for that very same reason.
May I just say just a welcome to everybody?
Of course.
And I really, I'm really excited. I told my family, I will get into it in a few minutes about these days, which are really difficult all over the world. And I really miss you. I mean, we were expecting to be on a shlichut in June, Hagit and myself, and we were really looking forward. And at least through the Zoom, when I saw all of the faces, I was really, really moved. I was really excited to see, friends from so many years ago, and your past presidents, and also from Canada. Wow, I didn't expect to have such great friends from Canada to join. I'm going to meet them next week. So it's really heartwarming to see all of you. And it's great for me. It's like, being like a big family. And when we see each other, even though it's so far and in this really stressful time, I'm really happy. And again, I really apologize on the name of Hagit, and I will explain whenever you want what we're going through, especially these days, and especially today after the decision of the government last night. But I will get to that back again. And really, thank you so much, all of you, for for everything that you do. For first of all, for the solidarity and for the caring and for your efforts. And like we say, Na'amat International is a big devoted family. That's what I really feel when I see everybody. So really, thank you so much.
Okay, well, let's delve into the current state of affairs with Na'amat at this point. I know we've heard that Israel has opened up a little bit, loosened up things a little bit, but please tell us about Na'amat, what is open, what is not open, and what the plans to reopen the facilities.
Okay, I will try to do it. Excuse me, I'm okay, don't worry, just a little bit of a cold.
Don't cough on this call.
Yeah, but I'm fine. So I will try to give you an update of what was happening here, I guess from March, like about the middle of March, I assume it was. Almost 2 months. Okay, I could begin with saying, and then I will try to give you an update of what was, a short update of what's going on, what is happening just from last night, what will be happening on Sunday. And then it's according, to what you ask and what you would want to hear, because I can really give you an update of what's going on in the daycare centers, also the Glickman Center, our legal bureaus, as well as Kanot, our technological schools. The situation is different in all the different installations. So first I can say that, and this is really, I mean, Na'amat has never in the 100 years of its survival, Na'amat was founded just almost 100 years old. We will be celebrating next year the anniversary of 100 years for Na'amat. I can tell you, and this is, I just discussed it with Hagit when we spoke just before your, before the Zoom meeting. Na'amat has never gone through such a crisis in all its 100 years. I can definitely say this. Financially, employees vis-a-vis, according with our employees, with our members, with our caregivers, with our regional chairpersons, with all the services that we give, with the families, with the children, youth, men and women. We've never gone through such a crisis, because this was never anywhere in the world in the last 100 years. So this is like to begin with. Now, let me explain to you what happened. When this coronavirus started, right away, I mean, just really the beginning, we had to shut down all our daycare centers. Already in the middle of March, we had to close all our daycare centers, which means that the parents had to, stay home right away. And we had to let all our caregivers, we're talking about over 3,000, okay, all our caregivers all over the country, all our daycare centers, went on a unpaid leave from Na'amat. Okay, they had to leave their job, and they get about 60 to 70% from the government. But Na'amat, they went on, it's called in Hebrew chalat, chufsha lelo tashlum. It's like an unpaid leave, like a vacation not paid by Na'amat, from the middle of March, which was like almost 2 weeks before Pesach. Now, and we're not talking about 100 caregivers or 200 or 300. We're talking about over 3,000 caregivers, where many of them, a large percentage, are, from families that are quite deprived families. a lot of single mothers, a lot of the husbands or the couples, you know, of the caregivers were also let off from their work in Israel right now. Just for you to get you know, a grasp of the statistics, we have 1.2 million unemployment, 1.2 million, and we're talking about work. It's like about a quarter of our workforce. Okay, it's like 25% unemployment, which is very, very, very difficult. So we had to deal just before Pesach of over 3,000 caregivers that many of them were really in such a personal crisis due to the situation, literally not having enough money to purchase food for the Seder, okay? Therefore, we began the emergency campaign. This is really the time to thank all of you for your efforts. Also AMAT Canada, which made really a big effort as well. And you know, even though it was in-house and it was not big funds, but still everything is so important. So we made, you know, we made boxes of food, literally. We sent to our caregivers, to the families. We had to send many also to our youth villages, to the families of our students, who also had to be at home right away. I mean, the country was like paralyzed, okay, from the middle of March. Now, all the workers of Na'amat, besides a very small team, a very small emergency team, which included myself, everybody, also all the secretaries, all the you know, office workers, everybody was also let off on an unpaid leave. Those of us that stayed, we had also a very meaningful, significant cut in our salaries. Really trying all of us together to show solidarity and to help in whatever we can, because Na'amat lost a few millions, more than a few million in just 2 weeks. All the tuition of the parents, half of March and all of April, has to be given back to the parents. I mean, you know, they pay ahead of time, they pay like every month. So since the daycare centers were closed, Na'amat had to repay them. We are doing it as we go along for half of March as well as April. And we are very, very much concerned and worried, and this I will get to in just a minute, that when the daycare centers will be reopened, which part of them I will explain in a minute, will be this Sunday, coming Sunday, many of the parents will not send their children back to the centers. Why? Because many of them are still unemployed. They cannot pay the tuition. They don't have the money to pay the tuition. And they think for themselves that we are now at the month of May. They say May, June, July, August, which is already summertime. So they will wait till September, hopefully that they will regain their jobs. So we are very much concerned that many of the parents will not send their children again. That's on one hand. And the other hand is that we have many caregivers who are at risk because they are over 60 years old. Many of them, not some, quite a many have, you know, if they have other sickness, you know, if they have a heart problem or all kind of problems, they are not supposed to go back to work. Even though we are back on this Sunday, I will explain in a minute, we are returning part of our daycare centers, but many of our caregivers, health-wise, cannot come back to work because of their health situation. So I'm looking here at some notes that I wrote to myself. Therefore, the situation is very, very difficult. We negotiated for the last month very strictly with our government, and it's very, very hard because we have the Ministry of Finance, we have the Ministry of Health. On the one hand, they have a lot of restrictions that if we open the daycare centers, we must do this and this and this and that, but they don't allocate enough funds. So last night, it was maybe, we had so many meetings, I cannot count them already. Some of them Hagit went, some of them are, you know, financial director went. We have a team that we are dealing and negotiating. So finally last night, after our prime minister 2 days ago felt that the organizations, NAMAT actually led all the women organizations, not only women, but all the organizations that have supervised daycare centers. They asked us to open a week ago, and we did not agree because we said it's not safe, it's health-wise, and we cannot do it. And finally, the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, understood. Therefore, yesterday was another very long meeting, and it was decided that from next Sunday, which is like in a few days, part of the daycare centers, not all of them, part of the daycare centers will be open, and only up to 17 children in a classroom. Up to 17 children in a classroom, which means it's up to about 50 children in a daycare center. And some of our daycare centers in normal times are 80 or 90 or 100. We will not be able to have more than 19 children in a classroom. And the caregivers, there is I don't want to get into all the details, but there are a lot of restrictions. Now, the government will help us because of the difference of the amount of children that are not coming to help us. So we'll be able to open the daycare center. But on the other hand, NAMAT has a lot of expenses. Just to give you an idea, something that the government will not help us, just for the first couple of weeks, in order to equip our daycare centers with, the thermos, to check the temperature, how you call it, a thermos?
Thermometer.
The temperature, what do you call it?
Thermometer,
right? Just to purchase thermometers and to purchase masks, that all our caregivers must wear, okay? And just the alcohol gel, what you have to clean your hands with. Just this for all our daycare center for the first few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, would be about 100,000 American dollars. So these are expenses that NAMAT did not take into consideration besides the drastic cut in the tuition. So we are very stressful. We are very nervous how this will be, how we will deal with this. We are very, very nervous. The parents, many of the parents are very angry because they say, how will you choose? How will we know which children can be accepted and which children cannot be accepted? So it's going to be according to if the parents have to go back to work. According to, children at risk, of course, will be a priority. But so it's really crazy. It's we're very nervous how the first day will open. It's much more difficult than the first day of school. Like September 1st, this is much more difficult because people are in stress. People are afraid. Many parents are afraid. They say, how are we going to leave our children with other children, with caregivers? This is something that we never had to deal with. So we're trying and we're combining everything together. We're also putting our staff from the Glickman Center to help also the parents from the daycare centers. We have this, I'm going already to another, if it's okay. Yeah,
so
to continue.
Can I ask you a question?
Because I want to give you understanding of, of the Glickman Center also, that are also trying to help also the population that we serve in the daycare center. So
right.
Let me know if.
Can I ask you a question about the? Can I ask you a question about the daycare center? So will the daycare,
sure.
Will the children and/or the caregivers be wearing masks when they go back? I mean, do you have this?
Oh, sure.
So they will be the children as well. Will they come?
No, the children, no, they don't have to also according to law, but the caregivers will have to wear masks. It's according to the regulations and for health-wise. Mm-hmm. What we are trying to do, we are thinking about it, and this probably we will be ordering, and we're doing it these days. We want to make a mask that will have a smiley on it, a nice face, something that will be not scary for the children. This is also something that we have to deal with. Because, children are quite in stress situation. Their parents are home. Their older brothers are not going to school. They just began this week, by the way. School was closed, okay? School was closed until just this week that they returned also only 1st to 3rd grade. They were learning from home. So this is also our technological schools. Part of them are continuing to work, to learn from home. Only 11th and 12th grades are coming back, and only those that are students at risk. For example, in Kanot, we have about 60 students at risk that had to come back to the village. and we have 170 in the dormitories that came back, which is half of the regular number. So we have to get equipped in all different places. Everybody has to be, of course, students have to be with math, but not small children in our daycare center. So it's a lot of, the problem is that there is a lot of uncertainty. That's the problem, because we don't know what will be tomorrow. And also in our country, as you said, in Israel, you are right, that some of the things were open under restrictions, but it's like an experiment for 2 weeks, okay? And hoping that within 2 weeks, it will not increase, because if the virus will spread again, then we'll have to go back. And this is what we're also very worried, that we will not have to close it again, or perhaps what will happen. So this uncertainty is very, very difficult for the women, for the children. We have a rise, Anita Blanchet, this is something that you are always interested. We have such a big increase of women and families, and also men, that are turning to the Glickman Center, to our hotline, to our, all our services, to our hotline. We have a telephone hotline for violence in the family. The violence in the Israeli society has increased tremendously. Just in the last week, 2 women were murdered. 2 women were murdered just since Yom Ha'atzmaut, which is less than a week. So,
Shirli, we're certainly trying our very best here in Canada and in Montreal, and I'm sure in the States also.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
by the way,
go ahead, Shirley.
yes. Just a second. I just wanted to say a word about Glickman, if I'm ready. May I?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I know that a lot of
just
people
want to say about Glickman.
Yeah, a lot of people had questions about the domestic violence, because we've seen your Facebook post, and we hear that, there's an increase in domestic violence. And we actually have a question from Susan Sparago in Arizona. So I'm going to ask her question, and then you can expand on that. And she was asking how is NATMAT able to help women experiencing domestic violence, especially now when people are home all the time? There's no privacy, their kids are home, everyone, it's close proximity. And if there's an abusive, relationship, then it's a 24/7 situation. And are women still allowed to get help? Where do they turn to? And how is NATMAT promoting ways for them to find help at this time?
Thank you for the question, and it's very important. I will do my best to answer. So the situation is really difficult, as you all understand. And on one hand, we have the Glickman Center, which is functioning. And on the other hand, we have our legal bureaus. We have our Women's Rights Center in Tel Aviv that is almost 24/7, really. They have also a hotline. We have also some of our lawyers who are all the time on call. Just our Aditi Tanovich, that some of you have met, she's in the office also almost every day in Tel Aviv. We get so many telephone calls regarding, first of all, a lot of problems within the family, and not less also problems at work, because if people, women are like now on a leave, they are afraid that they will be fired. They're unemployed, they want to know their rights. Everything is very tense. And exactly to your question, many of the women who call us, they say we can't, we're trying to see what their situation. We're trying to do an analysis through the telephone at first. So some of them cannot speak because they are at home and with their partners. So what we say to them, maybe go down to throw the garbage. And all kind of different ideas. Let's say you have to go to the, medical treatment, something like that. Say that you have to go, and this is what the women are doing. Many of them leave the house for even half hour, an hour, or just a few minutes. If they want to make, just short things, they say they throw out the garbage, or they say they have to walk the dog. This is something that is allowed. All kind of tricks. It's really unbelievable. I just heard from my colleague Edith, our lawyer, all kind of problems that these women face. Now, regarding Glickman, it's a little bit a different story. So first of all, we have the shelter, okay? Right now, the shelter is full. We have 30 women and their children. We have one room that it's supposed to be, because we had, for example, some of the women that came to us in the last, since the coronavirus, so they had to be 2 weeks in, how you call it, like closed in a room with nobody else.
Yeah, isolation or quarantine.
Isolation, exactly. So we have a special room for that. Our staff is working full at Glickman. We increased quite tremendously all the therapeutic and all the psychological treatment for the women and the children. I'm talking right now about the center. We have the Rodi Blanchet, this is in memory of Anita Blanchet's daughter. We have the multi-purpose center for children, which is functioning all day, with doing special activities for the children at this time, and also for the children together with their mothers. So this is something that we're doing. And another thing, for example, at Glickman, we have the staff that is coming to, our staff, our professional staff. They can't go with public transportation because there are no trains in Israel. So we send special taxis, private, cabs for them. So all this thing, we are organized and we have to do it. Now, the open part at Glickman is dealing a lot with telephone calls. Some of the women who can come and they want to come, then we meet with them, but we have to sit 2 meters apart with masks. We have all the restrictions. And I want to say something that Naamat, just a minute, an airplane is just above my house because I'm near an army base, an Air Force base. So I'm quite safe. Let me just close the window just a second. Excuse me. What we have decided in AMAT, and this is something that I still did not have a chance to put it in writing and to inform everyone, the Glickman Center, which you all know, right? And I hope many of you have visited the Glickman Center for the Treatment and Prevention of Domestic Violence, including the shelter. The Glickman Center was a partnership with the municipality of Tel Aviv. Okay, we got some of the funding, a lot of the funding actually, about half or so, I don't know the exact number, from the Tel Aviv municipality. Since a few months ago, there were a lot of problems, not only for the Glickman centers, but for all these kind of centers in Israel. The municipalities stopped funding them. They are helping only the shelter through the Ministry of Welfare, but all the funding for the open part and also part of the closed part has been stopped from the Tel Aviv municipality. This is something that we were told that might be just already a year ago or so, but it happened these days. And when just now, these last actually 2 months since the coronavirus and all this situation, we decided that we will continue, of course, operating and increasing even the services of the Glickman Center. And now it is called, I have here the new flyer, which I will translate to English. It will be called the House of Naamat for the Family, which will serve women, children, men also, and families, and it will give services first and foremost in domestic violence, the shelter and so on, but also different things about, instructing parents, CBT, helping parents to deal with their children. I'm looking here at the flyer. Of course, everything that has to do with domestic violence, but we, psychotherapy, everything else, but we were going to increase our services and we're going to open the services. This is very important, not only to the women from Tel Aviv, but rather from the women from all over Israel. Because until now, all the services of the open part, of the ambulatory part, were given to the women of Tel Aviv because it was a partnership with the Tel Aviv municipality. Right now, the shelter will continue to be a shelter, for battered women from outside of Tel Aviv, all over the country. And the open part, the ambulatory part, what we are doing now also these days with the hotline and with our services, will be open to women from all over Israel. And we will be doing our best to promote it and to, to publish it. And it's really it's a challenge. It's not very easy. It's a big challenge, but we see how important it is, especially these days when there is a crisis, to really give our services to the women from different places. So I'm going to stop at this point, to questions and so on, and then I can give you some more updates if you want about Kanot, our schools, and whatever.
So can I ask you a question? Has there been any outbreaks at our AMAT facilities, our centers at all, or any of our caregivers had the virus, or no, we've been safe?
Yes, they were. Thank God we don't know of anything that was dramatic or, God forbid, death or something like that. But yes, we know families of our caregivers that were that have the virus. Some of them still have it and cope with it. Some of them, were already they're fine. I mean, and they are fine now. They're healthy. They're back to themselves. But yes, of course, when you have Na'amat, serves. Actually, I would say over 35,000 families between our caregivers, our children, our students, our, legal bureaus, Glickman Center. And we hear, of course, a lot of, families and friends that this, that this one was analyzed as with the coronavirus, and this one was, in a harder situation. But at this point, thank God, I don't know of anyone who, excuse me, of anyone that, it was really dramatic, but rather that they overcame. But yes, of course, we have also families of children, some, of children from our daycare centers. This I know from the chairperson that I'm in contact with, that, they're also trying to help the parents of the children in the daycare centers, because everybody, and they're really doing their best. I must say also our caregivers, this is something that I did not point out, our caregivers and the directors of the centers are doing videos and all kind of, happy things and songs, and they're sending it by WhatsApp, and they're really investing their time to keep in touch with the children through these 2 months. Many of them are doing it. I shared with you some of these videos on Facebook and other, and I also on AMAT News, but they're really doing their best, but they also themselves are going through a very hard time.
Right. What have you found have been the psychological effects of women, maybe at the women's centers or with our counseling centers, of women and people being in isolation, people who are living alone, people who have no social contact? And how has that been treated with the psychological effects, depression, anxiety, fear, all of those things? Has that come into play for the Women's Center?
Of course, big time, of course, very much. And you know what, I feel, and this I hear also from our professionals, that they feel that women are even at a certain point even more affected, because they are used to be, multitasking, and they take care of the children, and they, it's not in every household, but in a lot of households, the women was really the main caregiver of the children and was more at home, and even though she was working. So it's even more stressful for her, because she has to deal, also for the men, it's very difficult to be at home. When they're unemployed, it could cause a lot of pressure. And the woman is in the middle of everything, and she has to deal with everything. Yes, we hear a lot of tension. We hear a lot of, worrying that the situation is unpredictable. This is something that people are worried very much in Israel right now, I can say, because thank God that health-wise, we're much better. We're better off, and let's hope, we all hope and pray that it will decrease and will be even better. But people in Israel at this point feel that the big crisis ahead of us is the economic crisis. And this will influence everybody, not only in a matter that they will be able to buy less food, and not only in a matter that they will will not be able to go to restaurants, will not be able to fly abroad, but rather tension of unemployment can cause a lot of violence, can cause a lot of pressure, a lot of, you all understand what this can cause. And in Israel right now, one of the biggest concern after, of course, let's hope health is the most important, but afterwards, the economic crisis is something that we feel like, I guess, all over the world, that this has not been for the last 100 years. And we are very, very worried. And we are very worried that it will take a long time, a real long time, until these kind of things will be able to be stable again. And this is where AMAT comes into the picture, but because this is something that AMAT will have to deal with even much more than we dealt with until now. And this is our challenge, but it's a very, very difficult challenge.
Has your government stepped in to help businesses and families?
I'll explain. The government, yes, stepped in to help the private sector, but I must tell you, because I have some friends that also are, like, say, in the private sector, these amounts are quite small amounts. It's not something that is such a big help. And also the problem is that many of the people who are now on an unpaid leave, and they get, let's say, they get between 40 to, I would say 40 to maximum 70% right now from the government. But this is limited time. And what our big concern is, and this the concern in our society, that many of these workers, many of the 1,200,000 workers will not be back again in their work. This is the problem, because everything in tourism, everything that has to do with you know, international business, something that they're worried what will be. All the businesses, people have less money. So if people will have less money in our society, all restaurants, everything, I mean, it goes along all fields of society. We are very worried that the 25% of unemployment will not decrease so fast. And this will stay for quite a while. And this is something that causes, you know, really bad. And this is something that we are so worried. And this is why I just spoke about it with my colleagues this week and last week and every week that we see this situation, that we are so worried that after, hopefully, the health situation will be much better. We don't know what the future will be. It's very unpredictable.
Yes. Tell us a little bit more about the teenagers in the high schools. I know you mentioned Connote, and that the dorms are half full and just the at-risk kids are there. But what about, I know we have, you know, thousands of teenagers in our tech high schools and of course at our two youth villages. So just wondering what's going on there. Are they finishing up the semester online? Are they in summer school online? What about the fall? How is that? And how have classes been, and how are the teenagers being dealt with in the high schools?
Okay, I'll tell you. Just a minute, I'll see. Okay, I will begin first with our technological schools, and then I'll let you know some things about Kanot and Ayanot. The technological schools, which are only high schools, they are the last four. I mean, it's 9, 10, 11, and 12th grade. Only the 11th and 12th grades are back to school from this week. Before that, they did from home. They learned from home through the computer, and this caused a lot of problems because we have 3,000 students. Okay, in our technological schools, including the youth villages, we have 3,000 students. 400 students do not have a computer at home. Okay, they don't have a computer at home. So if they don't have a computer at home, they cannot study from home. So this was very, very difficult. We did all kind of combinations. We tried to take computers from our schools to give those that don't have, you know, at home. But it was almost, we couldn't succeed in everything. It was very, very difficult. 400 of our students do not have a computer at home, so this was almost a mission impossible. So what we did, we sent them all kind of things through their iPhone, through their, you know, cell phone. We did the best we could, but it was not really the best. But we did whatever we could. We did teach online, like all the schools in Israel, but for children at risk and for students in our, you know, in our families, which are for many of them from deprived families, it was not the best solution. Right now, 11th and 12th grades are back to school. 9 and 10th are still studying from online, but I believe that this, in a week or two, they will be back in school. But then we also are equipping in our schools. We have to, you know, we have to separate, not sit one next to the other. We have to put in more classes. We're going crazy, I must tell you. I mean, it's very difficult because even though our classrooms are relatively small, of let's say 20 students, not like 40 in regular school, still the 20 students cannot sit if it's a small classroom. So we have to separate them. We have to change the hours. We're actually going crazy. And what we are doing is really, we are changing as we go along. We're trying to see how our ideas are working. This is what we will do in our daycare centers. We have to go along week by week and do the best we can and help as much as we can. But it's very, very difficult. So that's about our technological schools.
There'll be sports in the schools, in the high schools? Will there be sports and
yes, this is something that is good to do, but again, in small groups outside. We are allowed now in Israel. This is something that was just in the last few days. We are allowed to do sports outside of the house, not actually limited. It was limited first to 100 meters, which was a joke, and then it was to 500 meters. Now it's not just within the last few days. It's not limited, but you have to do it in groups of 2 and keep apart, all kind of restrictions. But again, it's a trial for 2 weeks, hoping that we will not have to go back. So this is something, yes, we are trying to do sports also, in basketball, whatever we can, but again, in small groups, and we have to do all these restrictions. Now, regarding Kanot, for example, Kanot and Ayanot. In Ayanot, we have the Naale project. These are, we have about 50 students in Naale, which is the international program where we have students from all over the world, and they stayed in Israel. Most of them did not go back since the outbreak of the coronavirus. So they are still staying in Ayanot, and they stay there all the time. And we gave them everything like it's their home. So we did our best to keep them and to help them whatever we can. Right now in Kanot, as I explained, we have about, usually in regular days, it's over 500 students. Right now we have about close to 200 students in the village, where most of them are in the dormitory. We're talking about 11 and 12 graders, as well as about 60 to 70 students who are at risk. Younger students who cannot be in their homes are now in Kanot. And by the way, many of them also were there before, not only in the last week or 2, but all through the coronavirus. They stayed at the village, and we equipped it. We put them in, we split the rooms, for example. Usually there are 4 in a room, so now there are only 2 in a room. We do everything that we can really to help with them. And in just a few days, I have a beautiful, beautiful video in English, also with English subtitles, but it's all in English, and I'm sure you will love it, of a few students from Kanot, who made a special video just now these days of how they're dealing and what are they doing. They were students at risk, and they're doing really great now. So I will send it to you. I will put it on the Na'amat International Facebook, and I will put it also on the Na'amat News. I will send it to you in a few minutes, and I'm sure you will love it. And this is just an example of the students in Kanot and what we are doing. Those of you that visited Kanot and Ayanot know that this is really changing and saving lives.
Absolutely. Another question. A lot of the funds raised in the United States for Na'amat goes towards renovations and upgrades to the various centers and facilities. Is there construction going on, and what's happening in that regard?
Okay, I'm glad for your question. The answer is yes. During the time of the coronavirus, we continued, excuse me, we did continue with the renovations that we started. Perhaps in some places more limited because not all of the workers could come and so on, but we continued with our main renovations under restrictions, of course. And we are now trying to check, this is another thing that we will be doing right now. Na'amat has about 200 daycare centers, approximately. But some of the daycare centers are not full. Some of the daycare centers are very old buildings. Some of the daycare centers are in neighborhoods which the population grew older, and we are now checking each of our daycare centers to see where we have to invest. Because if, for example, we have a daycare center, which is an all daycare center, and the situation is so difficult, then even if we get, for example, a donation of 50, 70, 100,000 American dollars, but the expenses are 300,000 or even more sometimes, it's a very old building and it has to be really almost, renovated from the beginning, we will decide to close that daycare center and invest in daycare centers that have a future, that we can, make them full. So perhaps the number of daycare centers will be decreased, but we will have those that can keep themselves and not waste money or renovate those daycare centers that really are in such a difficult situation and are so old that it's not worth it to invest for them, and we don't have the funds to make them like they're new, and we have to keep the best standards according to the regulations. So this is a very important question. And Diana, I saw your email asking about the project. Give me another week or two to check with my colleagues, because now everybody is really very worried about next Sunday, how we will open the daycare centers. So I don't even want to bother them with, with the priorities. But yes, we always have our needs for daycare centers for renovations, always. It's very important, and we count on it. And all the your renovations, also Canada and United States, all the projects that you send funding for will be done. And we even began, Liber, I think I don't have them all in my mind right now, but all the big projects that you send funding for, we are doing the renovations, and we must do it. Because you have to understand the competition within the daycare centers in Israel now is very, very difficult. Because it's not only Na'amat, Vitzo, and Emunah, which used to be. Now we have also the municipalities which run our supervised daycare centers and some more organizations. So the competition is very, very difficult, even though Na'amat is the biggest. But because we are the biggest, we have the most problems. Because many of our daycare centers are in far places, not necessarily in Tel Aviv, in developing time, where we have to help the population. But then many of the buildings are old, and the population is a deprived population, and we have to do our best to keep and maintain according to the regulations, but it is very difficult. So all your efforts and all your help and all the projects that all of you are involved is really helping us, and we appreciate it so much. It's so important, because this really makes the difference. So thank you, everybody, about that.
So I think I've been, along those lines, I've been asked the question that, our volunteers around the country want to know what is the most important project right now. If people were to donate right now, where is it needed most? And I know we did the emergency campaign, which we're still doing, our emergency appeal for the caregivers. Is that the most important thing, to keep the caregivers going, or are there other important projects that people can support?
I would say right now, helping the caregivers and helping the early childhood education network. Yes, the daycare centers are very, very important. Extra expenses to deal with the situation, which will not pass so fast, because even though, if, as I explained, health-wise will be better, we will need much more. Also at the Glickman Center, I would say the Glickman Center, as well as we call it now, the House of Na'amat, for the women and children and families. For domestic violence is first and foremost, as well as the daycare centers, because when this hopefully virus will be much better, we will have to deal a lot with psychological therapy, with helping the caregivers, to deal with the children. I spoke with, I know many of the directors of the from the daycare centers. So I have some really, we're very close, and I spoke to them just beginning of this week, and every week I pick someone and ask them what's going on, how are the families doing, how are the children doing. Everybody is really very stressed. So even when the children will come back to the daycare centers, I'm sure they will need special activities, even to cope with the tension, with the anxiety that they went through. So we will do special activities at the daycare centers. We'll do special activities at the Glickman Center, at the open part. So, you know, anything that your women are connected to, if it's young children, we need it for sure at the daycare centers. If it's youth, we have our you know, Kanot and Ayanot, our youth villages, which is always, always a big need. The House of Naamat, Glickman Center. So anything that relates to your women or to your groups or to your chapters is always a very big help, because as I opened my words, you know, at the beginning of our talk, we are really very, very worried, and we are really very concerned. And you know, I don't want to tell you, I want to be optimistic, but I'm worried. I'm really worried because the financial situation of Naamat at this point is very, very hard, very difficult. And as I said, we never cope with such a situation, and we don't know what the future will bring. We're doing our best. We're really, really doing our best, and we're thinking, you know, to be the most efficient and to do the best. But it's a difficult task.
Yes, thank you. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open it up to a Q&A. If anybody has a question, they can raise their hand in the chat box. I don't see any hands. I haven't seen any hands. So at this point, I'd like to ask Marcy if she sees some in the chat box.
There have been some questions that have come through. I'm going to start from the top, from the very beginning. Hi, Shirley. This is Marcy. I work with Deanna in our national office. A question from Sandy Siegel. Has there been outreach to families of the multi-purpose daycare centers who are at such high risk when the shutdown occurred?
Yes, yes, of course. We have about 2,000 children at risk, and the caregivers and the directors of these centers are the most really efficient and the most professional, like our caregivers all over the country, but especially we made our best to be in contact with all the families and to see the situation and to help. And sometimes if we need to be in contact with the municipalities, with the social workers, or, you know, all kind of services in the community, then we also made the connections in order to help them as much as possible. Yes, sure.
Very nice. Okay, also another question from Sandy Siegel. Is the government going to supply the personal protection equipment for the daycares and schools for all your teachers and caregivers?
No, this is what I said before. This is a problem. What the government is helping us to do, because otherwise we would not even be able to open the daycare centers, because if the restrictions are to open with half the children, basically a little more than half, and we have to open everything, and we have, you know, to make sure there's food and buy everything. And in order to keep the daycare center and maintain the tuition, which will be about, let's say 60% of the normal, the government will help us to cover the 40% tuition of those parents that are not sending their children right now. But everything else, all the extras, if we have special activities, if we have what we have, not if, we already, as I said before, we had to purchase, just now for the first few weeks, we had to purchase the most urgent needs to cope with the situation: masks for all the caregivers, alcohol gel, and you need a lot of alcohol gels for the children, for the caregivers, thermomisters, whatever you call it. Yeah, right. Because this is something that we have to check all the children and also their parents when they come and they enter the daycare center. You have to, this is according to the law in Israel, you enter a public place, you have to have your temperature taken to see that you're okay. So another thing, we had to, you know, we cleaned, we're doing it now. We're working like really 10, 12 hours a day in our daycare centers now, cleaning everything, you know, making it, you know, with alcohol gel, making it sterile. So all the toys and all everything, you know, so this will be working. We worked already this week and today, tomorrow, Friday, because on Sunday we have to open. So everything like of this, Naamat has to cover. We get a very small from the government. This morning, I asked our CPA, he said to me that just for the first few weeks, it will cost Naamat about 350,000 shekels, which is close to 100,000 American dollars, just to begin with. But this is something that we have to do. And no, so this is the problem. The government is giving us part for the tuition. But Hagit explained to me also, when I just spoke to her before our call, is that there is always we are in contact with the Ministry of Finance and with the Ministry of Health. And they don't talk in the same term. It's a problem because the Ministry of Finance says this is the budget allocated, and then the Ministry of Health said, no, that's not enough because you have to do this and this and this and this and this. So give us the funds for it. And they fight between themselves, and they don't agree sometimes between, and this is the big problem. That's why Hagit said to me, I'm going crazy. I'm just going crazy. And I know, because I also spoke to the head of our early childhood last night, and she said, we're going crazy because the regulations that we get are not always the same regulations. And by the way, AMAT is also a lot now on the press, on the Israel press, and also Hagit appeared on our television, saying the last few days that the government is not there. She's not with us. She doesn't, until last night that finally a decision was taken that we'll be able to open. But we really pressured very, very hard for that. Yeah.
Deanna, can I
Yes.
just say one thing?
Yeah.
Just as you're opening up your daycares, there's something that came from our children's hospital here locally. A lot of the children are afraid because the caregivers wear masks and it's not what they're used to seeing. So what they suggested is take a picture of yourself smiling, ideally, and pin it to your shirt and say, this is
Yeah.
me. And, because I look different with the mask. And for the little kids in particular who don't understand. So I thought that was a really good idea. So you might want to think about it. And it's just, they take just any picture of themselves smiling and pin it to their shirt and say, if they have to wear the mask, so the kids aren't so afraid.
Great idea. They do it in hospitals, by the way. They do it in hospitals in Israel. It's a great idea. I will tell, I think we spoke about something, but I'm not sure. I will speak to Hagit about it. I will tell her that it's your suggestion. It's a great idea because we are now actually ordering masks, as I said, colorful masks and with a smiley, something that will be also this, when we will meet the children first time, we will do it like a game, like a play, like something, that is not, so we won't be scared because they will be really terrified. They're not used to it because their parents at home are not with a mask when they are with them. So this is something that we have to greet them and we have to welcome them and we have to do it very, wise. We have to do it smart. And your idea is great, and I will pass it on, and we will do the best we can to make it, as happy as possible.
Okay, a question from Linda Schoenberg, and this goes back to when we were talking about the House of AMAT, Glickman Center, and domestic violence. Linda says, there are safe houses subsidized by other organizations such as JNF. Wouldn't it be more cost effective to work with all the facilities throughout the country to help families at risk?
Each organization, there are so many families at risk that I didn't really get your question, because each organization is helping different people. We are all in contact, of course. We're in contact and we consult each other. There is no competition or anything between. We're all working, but there's so much need that each one has their own, their population that turns to them.
But you commented that you're going to be doing people other than Tel Aviv. And so the question is, I was only originally aware of the Glickman Center. And if there are safe houses around the country, then whoever is the closest place theoretically would be a resource for them to go to. And so I think by having all of the safe houses direct people in need to the closest place would be a good idea.
So let me explain, let me clarify something. When I'm talking about the Glickman Center, the shelter will be the same. The shelter for battered women, which gets its budget from the Ministry of Welfare, will stay as it is, as a shelter, okay? And this is meant for women outside of Tel Aviv because it's secret. They're not supposed to know exactly where they are. So this is meant for, excuse me a second. This is meant for women outside of Tel Aviv. Now, The Glickman Center, or the House of Naamat, will be called now. It will stay also the name of the Glickman Center, but first and foremost will be the House of Naamat for Women and Her Family. Will give services for women from all over Israel, but there are not so many places like that. When you talk about safe houses, it's shelters. But shelters in most places, Linda, are just a shelter. They're a shelter for battered women. They don't give services like we give at Glickman. There are only very few places like that. The open part has a lawyer. By the way, there are only like 2 or 3 places that have also a lawyer on the premises. We have a lawyer, we have therapists, we have psychologists, we have social workers, that women can come from the community. So this is really unique. Therefore, we want to open our doors and we want to promote it, because in order for us to maintain and keep it, also financially, we must increase our services. Otherwise, we will not be able to maintain because of the cut of drastic budget from the municipality of Tel Aviv.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me know about, maybe if I may ask, you know, just choose a few. Let me know how you are dealing in Canada, in the States. I mean, how are you dealing with your women? How are you connecting with your members? You know, I don't see who else is connected. I'm afraid to start moving it, so I won't lose you. But I guess we have women from all over the States, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's women all over.
How can I see other people? I should move with
Well, I have you on spotlight when you're speaking, so I can.
Okay, so later on I will.
Later
okay,
on,
great.
and we finish.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let me know a little how you are doing.
Okay. Any more questions, Marcy?
I have
A question.
one. Shirley?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry. Shirley, it's Anita.
Anita, I recognize your voice.
I'm sure you do. And my gray hair, I'm the only one with real roots these days. I watch all my friends who are turning gray. Shirley, I'd like to understand a little more from this whole conversation. Does that mean, or you're trying to explain to us that the name Glickman will be gone?
I'll explain exactly.
Rodi's building, the name will be gone?
No, what we are calling it actually, and it just done these days, it's not yet, you know, it's not working yet as the House of Naamat, because not enough people know about as the name of the House of Naamat, but it will be called Habayit Shel Naamat LaMishpacha, Naamat House for the Family, and we keep the name, and right near it, we put in parentheses, Merkaz Glickman, the Glickman Center. So the name Glickman will stay because many people know it as the Glickman Center. But in order to promote it and to make it not only for the Tel Aviv area, we will be calling it Habayit Shel Naamat LaMishpacha. And exactly what I'm reading now from the flyer in Hebrew, which I will translate, it says that we will expand our services and will make it a center for all over the country, for consultation, for treatment, and for instructing for women, for children, families, for men, and to give an overall treatment for domestic violence, and also additional. This is the idea.
Yeah, but for us, it's a marketing building also. You have to understand. So if our public knows it as the Glickman Center and the Rodi building, that's another thing. Why can't this whole new thing go on top the Glickman Center and underneath Habayit Shel HaMishpacha?
First of all, the Rodi Blanchet stays the same, and this always stays the same.
No. Let's talk about Glickman, fine. Because for me, when we're selling a product, we're selling a very known product. The States and Canada are very successful with this. Why throw it away and have somebody think we're building something?
I understand, Anita.
You understand what I'm saying? Right now, somebody will think, oh, we're building something else. Let's start to market it in a different way. It's the same as when we changed from Pioneer Women to Naamat. Now we're changing from Glickman to Habayit Shel Mishpacha.
We're not really changing, but we're increasing and we're expanding. The Glickman was given by the Tel Aviv municipality, but we were...
Okay, you know what?
But
Yeah,
you
it's
can
not the
keep it.
place for this.
Just a
We'll
second.
have this conversation when you're talking to Canada, but I
Yeah,
think
but
you
let
should
me just say
rethink
one
it
sentence. Let me
even
just say
for
one
the
sentence.
Americans.
No, no, yes, but let me just say one sentence that yes, you can keep, because you can call it the Glickman Center / the House of Naamat. You know, this is really up to you, and we will do it together with you. Whatever is good for you, we will manage ourselves. In Israel,
Okay.
in order for us to promote it and to make it more visible and more known and more attractive, because not everybody knows the Glickman Center, but if it's like the House of Naamat, because Naamat is really very well known, then perhaps it will attract. We want to promote it. This is a big problem to do it, as you understand. So we want to do our best.
Okay, you know what? Think about it. I'm going to be speaking to you next week when it's a Canada thing, and I invite our American friends to join us.
Okay. Marcy, are there more questions?
Well, this is following along in the same topic of the Glickman Center. Jan Gervich has a question. How will women be able to access services in the open side of Glickman if they live hours away from Tel Aviv?
Well, that's what they do anyway.
Okay. So Jen, to your answer, it's a good question, but I assume that women who live in Kiryat Shmona will not come to the Glickman Center. They have the centers also in the north. But there is a big, Tel Aviv is really the center of a lot of places, okay? So if until now we could accept only women from Tel Aviv, right now we'll be able to do it from all the all places, all the surrounding area, which has an enormous amount of population, okay? Half-hour drive or even less. Herzliya and Ramat Gan, and you know, all the cities around Tel Aviv. I mean, this is a very, very major place. Of course, people from the far south or from the far north, I guess, will not come to the Glickman Center. But if we expand our services and we'll be able to make our services known to the at least the around Tel Aviv area, then we can we are multiplying our numbers by a by far. Okay.
Okay, this is a question from Lynette Schiffman. There's an increase in Aliyah from various countries due to Corona, as well as anti-Semitism. How will Na'amat deal with this?
Thank you for the question. And actually, I wanted to ask you about anti-Semitism. Okay, I will try to answer for the best I can. You know that Na'amat International is part of the World Zionist Organization. And besides being involved with everything that Na'amat is doing in Israel, I'm part and I'm a delegate at the Presidium also of the World Zionist Organization, representing Na'amat. Na'amat is a movement in Israel, does not deal with anti-Semitism, but this is rather part of the Na'amat International as part of the World Zionist Organization. Hopefully in next October, the upcoming October, the Zionist Congress is supposed to be held in Israel. At this point, they did not cancel it yet. One of the big issues will be anti-Semitism. As a matter of fact, Jan, you know, one of the issues that we wanted to deal with when we wanted to come to the Shlichut in June was really what is Na'amat stand about anti-Semitism? What is Na'amat stand about all the reform, conservative, who is a Jew, all kind of issues relating to the Jewish world. This is something that we'll not be able to do in June. But Na'amat will have a stand on this. But Na'amat does not give services in Israel regarding anti-Semitism, as you understand, but rather this is a portfolio more of Na'amat International. What I do on Na'amat International Facebook is I post a lot of posts regarding anti-Semitism, how to combat anti-Semitism, how to deal with anti-Semitism, what we can do. And this is also in cooperation with the World Zionist Organization, and it's a big issue. And this I would like to hear from you, because from what we hear in Israel now, is that anti-Semitism really increases due to the coronavirus, because all the anti-Semitic people around the world, you know, blame some of them blame the Jews, which is absurd, but this is what is happening according to what we are learning here in Israel. Now, regarding Aliyah, yes, I heard that there is, but look, at this point, we can't really measure numbers, but I understood that there is an increase in Aliyah, at least an increase in, in checking and seeing what can be done for the near future. But I don't know if anything else that you wanted to ask about Aliyah. I didn't really understand your question about that, but about anti-Semitism, I would appreciate hearing from you also.
Well, we know anti-Semitism is on the rise, and you hear things every day, and especially Zoom bombings. We've heard various stories about people's Zoom conferences with temples, with friends, various community organizations have been hit with anti-Semitic screen shares and people getting on that shouldn't be there. And that's why Zoom has put on, many security features because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you see it also in your communities? Do you see anything on the press? Because according to the World Zionist Organization, in different countries, also in Europe, a lot in Europe, there is an increase. There is like really all kind of things on the website and on the, really horrible.
There's been rallies in the US to open up the economy, and some of the rallies, the people are carrying swastika flags.
Oh my God. That's horrible.
There are rallies like that, but there are also people speaking out, local politicians, local community people that are not necessarily from the organized Jewish community. These are American citizens who are speaking out. So yes, there has been a spike in the activity of that type. Fascist groups, neo-Nazis, racists. At the same time, there have been people speaking out.
Mm-hmm. Wow, okay, at least speaking out against anti-Semitism.
My daughter works for the ADL. She's one of the vice presidents there. She's been doing a lot of research, and she's been finding that it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Wow.
There are more of those flags. There are more pictures of rats, these ugly rats with a Jewish star on it, saying that
Oh my God.
they have brought the coronavirus.
Where, Ivy? Where do you see it? Where?
Everywhere. There's rallies.
Not only on the internet. I mean, really, not only on the internet or something. I mean.
No. They have rallies. They have now. What they're doing is they have these games that they put onto onto the phones and things like that, and they have their own secret codes, and they all go on there and they all discuss it, but it's online. You can go see it at all times, and then they do have their rallies and they do have things like that. It's gotten really bad.
This is in the United States, not also in California?
It's all over the United States. My daughter is literally, she's being bombarded by the numbers from states all over the United States, all over.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's really bad.
Pittsburgh, this is Jackie from Pittsburgh. Sorry, I don't look my best.
You're great.
I know in Pittsburgh that the Federation has brought together, which is very common here, but the Federation has brought together all of the Jewish communal service workers and organizations, and we have weekly meetings and updates about what's going on and who's on the scene and what's going on where. So our community is really come together to have the pulse on the north, south, east, and west of our region. So there's a lot of internal communication, and then we do have our Jewish paper that comes out once a week. But I think the more of our communication comes internally. But we've seen a rise and increase since the shooting.
Oh my God, really? Wow.
people put up, sorry, I'm not feeling well. They put up posters to, jeez, I don't want to say the sticks, but you know, like on the corner where you have wooden round like things that you put posters on?
Telephone poles.
Thank you. I have to go get my medicine today. But they put up these posters on telephone poles in our community that that have seeds that I don't really know what they mean, but there's some like secret symbol knowing that that is a area that somebody who is anti-Semitic has been in and is targeting. And that was that's been the most recent Michigas here with anti-Semitism.
Can I speak for a moment? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Hi. Hi, Shirley. Good to see you. It's always a pleasure to
Good to
hear
see you.
You know, I think what Ivy was describing, though, I just don't want you to get the wrong impression. These rallies, these are people who want to open the country. It's not like it's an anti-Semitic rally per se. These are people who are carrying posters and banners, anti-Semitic banners, but these are at rallies where people in the United States want to open their states because of the high unemployment and all the restrictions. So it's not just specifically, you know, anti-Semitic. Shirley, I wanted, while I have your attention, I was just curious at the name Beit Habayit Shel Na'amat. It sounds, why wouldn't you say Beit Na'amat? It sounds a little awkward, Habayit Shel Na'amat.
No, I don't know. Look, it's our PR decided Habayit Shel Na'amat LaMishpacha. It's because it's more like Habayit Shel, Bayit is like something more close, like more heart, more in your heart rather than Bet Na'amat.
Okay.
It's more like a home, more like a home. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
As opposed to a
exactly.
house.
More like a home. More like a home.
Okay, I wanted to point out that some of the corporations here are taking their logos. It's sort of interesting and get your attention.
No, I can
Say some air.
Okay, taking their logos and they want to show that they are doing social distancing. So like McDonald's, you know, the golden arches, they've separated the arches. I don't know if you've seen it. And they're promoting that. And I don't know if we want to do something like that, you know, it's sort of a gimmick, but if you were interested, we could open up the Na'amat logo just to show that we are participating in social distancing. So if you're interested, maybe Jan or maybe we can talk about that. We'd be happy to do that in Photoshop. Yeah, I mean, it's just a gimmick, but it just shows that, you know, when I saw that McDonald's did it, I thought it was very clever. So,
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and you know, we're always toying with the idea of adding something to our name as well to help us with our fundraising and to help us with our public relations for Na'amat. So here with that, when you say Habayit Shel Na'amat, and then you're going to tack on the Glickman Center, we've always thought about doing that as well, because you know, Na'amat USA doesn't say anything to America. I mean, they don't recognize it. We have a lot of trouble with our name. So I think we're going to revisit that. We'll talk to the executive board here and we'll revisit that, tacking on something to our name. Like what
do you think if you add pioneer women, it makes a difference?
Not anymore. No, I think we need to say what we do in a few short words, you know. We've talked to a PR company and we got some ideas from them, and they've shown us what they've done to other organizations where they tack on a couple of words and then the name of the organization. So I think we should, I'll talk to the executive.
Yeah, like your mission in very short.
Right.
Well, that's why empowering women since 1925 was added on, because one, it tells us what we do. And in this sense, not that we're old, but it shows we're seasoned in doing it for a long time. So we have experience. It's not used, you know, sometimes because we are an aging organization, but sometimes if we were ahead of our times, that we are continuing to do this, it's a powerful statement. So that if we say empowering women since 1925, it gives.
Yeah, but that's a tagline. I'm talking about adding something to our name just for marketing
Okay, so
purposes.
we need to talk to
Maybe you can do like making a difference. What now? I always, but anyways, you have to think about it with your PR people.
Yeah, I'd like to revisit that again with our executive board.
Look,
So.
I really hope, I want to hope really for all of us that in October, it's in like 5 months or so, I really want to be optimistic and hope that if we do have and we hold the Zionist Congress, which is held once in 5 years, it's not like the General Council, this is the Zionist Congress once in 5 years, that we will be able to have a delegation, a small delegation. We have to see the budget that is allocated for it from the WZO, but it is a small delegation from NAMAT USA, NAMAT Canada, and I really hope that this is something that will be able, that will be held. At this point, they did not cancel yet, but I'm waiting for the next couple of weeks to see, and then I will inform all of you, of course. And Jen, this is something that you, of course, will have to be.
No, we're very much, we're very anxious and excited to go to Israel in October, and I'm keeping up my hopes that everything will happen the way it's supposed to be. And we have delegates who are very excited and anxious to join and to be there.
By the way, I didn't forget, but I want to emphasize the scholarships, okay? One of the flagships of NAMAT. I'm glad that I just remembered. These days, we have over almost 500 applications for the 200 that we are granting for bachelor and master degree. And also for our PhD grants, which this year will be in gender studies, and also in very interesting will be in limudei hamoach, brain science, how you call it,
neuroscience,
exactly. Exactly. And we have so many research grants that are being now handed in to my department. But all this will be postponed because we will not be able to do it like every year in June or July. We have to go through and to check it and everything. And right now, we have no manpower. I do it together with my secretary, which she's already, she's on unpaid leave, and I work, only like emergency things and just urgent things. So all this scholarship will be probably postponed till September, October. But I want to tell you that this is one of the most important projects that you have. And all efforts in this on this field, because before Diana asked me about the project, it's also one of the most important projects we have, and especially now, because this help is crucial always. And at this time, when there is such an economic crisis following the health crisis, it's even more important and more crucial for the students. So
okay, Shirley, we will discuss this because this has always been part of the transmissions that NAMAT USA has made. And we will be in touch and talk about how much we will be able to send for the scholarship.
I just want to send my appreciation for this because it's really one of really.
Yeah, we're very proud to participate.
Shirley, I have a question. This is Shelley. Are you not going to give out the scholarships, or are you just not going to have the ceremony?
Oh, of course we will give. Of course we will give.
Oh, you're just not going to have the ceremony.
Yes, of course. We're just not going to have it in July. No, we want to have we want to do the ceremony, but because the ceremony is also very meaningful.
Yes,
it gives
and
it's really, we are so proud of it. You were in a ceremony, which is beautiful. We're hoping to do with a ceremony, but perhaps in September, October. Just postponed instead of July, because we also have to, to deal and to check it and to do everything. We want to do the ceremony, and hopefully we will be able to do it, but we are granting for sure. Yes, of course, we have, the students are expecting, they handed in everything, and we will do it for sure, yes.
Are there any other questions? Marcy, do you see any more?
Jackie from Pittsburgh asks if there's a way we can help by making masks and sending them to specific daycare centers, or contributing any other protective equipment, or even to the youth villages, Glickman Center.
Yeah, so I want to tell you, I'm not sending these alone. To send it is not a good idea because we purchase it a big number, so we get a much better price. And this is something that we do, you know, through our, but you know, any campaign for any help would always be very much appreciated and very much needed. But it's much cheaper for us to do it because we order such a big number.
It's more about engaging. I know I have a whole group of younger women who would like to be involved and fiscally contribute, but they just can't because they can't afford to put their own children in daycare. But they can contribute by or feeling a part or investing in them by them making these masks that they might want to make, that we could, you know, they could feel like they're being a part of a movement helping the women and children of Na'amat by doing this. So that was more of the impetus, was a way to help, a way for these young women to feel like they're helping and a part of things that may at some point in their life lead to a fiscal responsibility. But, you know, it's just, but if it doesn't, if that won't work, then I won't.
Jackie, it's Linda Schoenberg. So my recommendation is, because shipping is an issue, that maybe these women can make masks. You can donate them to a local hospital or as a facility and say, these masks were made with love from the women of Na'amat.
Yeah, that's what we're working on now. But it's they wanted to ask if there's a way to get it past, you know, to get it to these daycares, because they get all the emails and they want to help, but they everyone's kind of in the same situation. Thank God that, you know, we have a home. So I feel really blessed for that. But, you know, everyone in the whole world is in the same situation. So it's really, they want to be able to help, but they can't help donating money right now.
Diana?
Suggestion.
Hi.
It's a nice
Hello.
suggestion. I wanted to offer, I will try to call Hagit for a second. If she cannot connect or anything, maybe she'll say just a few words through my cell phone, and I will put it so you can hear. What do you say?
That would be fantastic.
Great.
That'd be great. Why don't you try to do that?
Yeah, that's what I thought about.
Will you also tell us about what happened last night and what she's working on?
This is what I told you at the beginning, this whole negotiation with the government and everything, yeah. Just a second.
This is Rudy Lubov in Chicago. I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Just a second, I want to see if Hagit will answer me.
While we're waiting, maybe.
Just a second. Hagit? יקרה, תגידי, יש לך כאילו להגיד להם אפילו דרך הפלאפון שלי, רק כאילו נתתי פה, אני עוד איתם בזום, את מבינה? 7. אוברול מטורף על כל השירותים עם שאלות וגליקמן והמעונות ומה. לא, אז עזבי, אז אני אגיד להם, ואני אספר לך, כאילו זה ממש מדהים, אנחנו עוד באמצע, עוד מעט אני מקווה, נראה לי אנחנו מסיימים, אבל ממש היה מצוין. אז זהו, סתם חשבתי שאם במקרה את בדרך או משהו, אז אני אמסור להם שבסדר גמור, אין בעיה. Just a second, אוקיי? זהו, את מבינה? הזום הזה זה כאילו להיות כמעט זה, משהו מדהים. אבל מוסרים לך המון זה, נתת ממש update על הכל, ויש עכשיו שאלות ותשובות. יופי, אין בעיה. אז אין איזה משהו, יום ראשון זה קורה לפי התכנון עם כל הבעיות. אוקיי, יאללה. ברור, לא, אני נתתי פה תמונה מאוד מקיפה, והיו הרבה שאלות, שמי, זה 100 נשים מחוברות, כמעט 100 נשים. אז לכי תתארגני, אני לא רוצה להפריע לך, סתם חשב. 100%, אוקיי, ערב טוב, ביי ביי. Sorry, Hagit is just going to her shower. She just walked home 10 minutes ago, so sorry. She's just going to take a shower after a very long day. So I said to her, okay, so she's really sending all her appreciation and love, and she's really sorry that she was not able to connect. But I told her that that we gave an overall on questions and answers, and how much, we appreciate really what you are all doing. Sorry, so she will not be able to
Maybe
connect.
we'll schedule something again with her
Okay.
in the next week or two.
Okay.
Hello,
Yeah.
this is Rudy Lubov in Chicago. Do I have the microphone?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Hi, nice to see
Hi.
all your faces. I wanted to comment on the previous speaker whose name I'm sorry I don't remember, the lady from the Philadelphia area who suggested that making masks was a good project. And
From Pittsburgh.
I've forgotten your name.
That's okay.
Okay, and I wanted to say that, in our organization, it's important not just to think monetarily, but to think in terms of how people can give back and feel involved and a part of an organization. And I think making masks would be a fabulous way for those that can to involve a family or a young person or an older person, whatever, in being able to do something that's very tangible. And if the problem is just shipping, I would be happy personally to donate whatever shipping costs they would be. I think we can find angels who would be very happy to cover the cost of shipping. And I think we get a lot of benefits. I think of my daughter's involvement in Locksbox when we did the local Locksbox, and I took them with as we were delivering and as they were packing in my garage. And that experience, I think, really stayed with them because they felt like they were doing something very personally to help.
Right.
And
it sticks with the children. Like my kids both want to do something, but aside from them giving their tzedakah box, like if we're saying, okay, let's do this mask making to send to these children at this technical high school, they are going to be like, oh, no, AMAT. Okay, I know what that is, and it's just a tangible way to help them.
Right.
Let me
I have to
relate
say,
to that.
I think, very honestly, I have to say, I think that it's much better in terms of these people participating in local daycare where they live, because it does become complicated. If you ever send a letter to Israel, you have no idea how long it will take from the United States to Israel. There's a point of
That's not the point, though. That's not the point. The point isn't whether it really gets there. The point is that it involves a giving, a very tangible way for people abroad to be able to feel like they're involved. And that's the point.
Let me say something about that. First of all, the idea is a nice idea. But it is a nice thing, it connects people. And by the way, AMAT Mexico and AMAT Brazil is doing some things for their community, like for hospitals or things like that, helping like in different matters to get women involved and to feel that they are really doing, something. But being practical to Israel, it's not practical. It takes a very long time, and we're already doing it. And I mean, we're doing it now and ordering it for everybody. This will not be practical when we talk about practical ways. But yes, you can do it with your women. You can as an AMAT.
You're missing the point. Even if the masks are never used, the point of it is to involve people here in something that they feel. And if you want to do it locally, that's fine, except that then nobody really understands what it means to do with AMAT. The idea is to incentivize people to feel like they're giving in some way that they can, tangible way.
It's Linda Schoenberg. I have one other comment. One of the reasons that people say that NAMAT USA is not a successful organization when compared to National Council of Jewish Women is that NCJW does stuff here and they see the benefits immediately. And I don't think there's anything wrong with engaging NAMAT women who feel that they would like to do something to donate their efforts to something local. It's here, it's now, they can see the benefits. It will be greatly appreciated. It will put our name out in the United States, in the Pittsburgh community, or in the Chicago community. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting our name out. We need name recognition, and that would be a perfect way of doing it. And if we could get fabric that said AMAT USA and they made masks with that, it would be a bonus. I've said my piece.
I agree.
Okay.
This is Marcy in Cleveland, and I agree.
just say a comment, just one comment, Diana. I just want to say, I will, of course, hear your whatever you have to say, Marcy, but in 15 minutes, about 20 minutes, I have to connect to another Zoom. So let's, if you have some more questions, Marcy, I will relate to what you're saying, because in about 15, 20 minutes, I have to connect to another Zoom, if that's okay.
Right, we have the
Because
same
it's
thing.
from our local community that we're trying to do and to see how to help the elderly. So, yeah, okay, I'm with
My
you.
suggestion was going to be that they make masks, and having non-AMAT material would be great, but donate them to your local fire department or your police department who need these masks desperately. And again, it does get our name to a local organization that is in need of masks, and or send it to your television station.
Right, so these are all things we can discuss locally and not on this call at this point. Does anyone have any further questions for Shirley? If not.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
What happened?
My
hand is raised. This is Gail. I don't know.
Hi, Gail.
Hi there. So I really enjoyed this session, and I want to thank you for doing it. And I'm sorry that Hagi couldn't be here. I like this whole concept. A lot of ideas have been thrown out. You've kept us in touch of what's going on, that I could see how we could present it at our meetings or our Zoom meetings that we're now having, because we can't get together. But this give and take of ideas from around the country, I think, is excellent. And perhaps we should schedule stuff like this maybe every other month or something, so that we can meet with other non-AMAT Israel people and have a give and take and ideas of what's going on, and just a whole bunch of things. And maybe we need to combine our fundraising campaigns into one campaign as opposed to a lot of little splinter campaigns. I don't know. I mean, it's just a lot going
Gail,
on.
by the way, as Jan, I think what you're talking about would be a very good idea for a town hall meeting.
Right.
And we could perhaps even do it by area. That might be helpful, where the areas can do their own town hall. Because as opposed to having 80 people on, you might have 20 people on a call and give people more opportunity to get ideas shared.
And I think having someone from Israel speak is important.
I've been raising my hand, and I raised my hand for a while. I love the idea. I think today was extraordinarily successful. I think we are so grateful to Shirley for being a part of this, but we had planned in June to have Shirley with Hagi visiting with us. One of the things my group is talking about is having a L'chaim meeting. And we ought to think, and maybe in light of what John just said, having either area or another all for the whole country in June, a L'chaim session to life, where we all lift our glasses in our homes, and where Shirley and Hagi are featured for part of it, so that we follow this meeting and the impact that today's meeting will have will go forward. We need this shot in the arm. We know we do. We need it for our members, and we're missing the boat if we don't follow up this meeting with the next. But we have to really thank Shirley and everyone. Shirley, it was incredible today. And I know that there are people who are going to go back now and start new projects just based on what you're talking about. So thank you. And thank you.
And I want to thank Selma, because it was her idea, her club's idea, to arrange
great.
this conference, the Zoom call. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is great. So, Chaverot, I want to say, just to resume, first of all, I really think it was great. I think it's great. And I think Zoom meetings every so often are great. Actually, I spoke to Diana about it in Israel and to Jan. I did it a few times already with Canada before the coronavirus, you know, some executive meetings, whatever. It's great to do it every so often. That's why I also suggested to do it, especially at this time. And I really thank all of you. And we really, as I always say, we really so much appreciate everybody's concern and all your concern and efforts. And, you know, and I really feel like I said at the beginning, like we are real solidarity, big family. And what I suggested to Diana, that perhaps all of us in the next few minutes before I have to disconnect, let's sing one song together and feel like, you know, like Ine Matovu Manaim or whatever you know.
So I'm gonna,
I don't know, something that everybody knows the words.
I'm gonna put the words up on the screen and the music.
Okay, great. And I'm gonna take a video of this.
And
1
everybody
minute.
can sing. I will wait after.
Esther Fleetler. Come on.
I'm going to leave the meeting because I have another class that started.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Everybody, good health. Good health. Everybody, may you be healthy and good health and best wishes to all of you and to your family.